Welcome to Joa Fitness Health Wellness Video Podcast, a space to ignite your day through positive conversations. We bring people that have created excellence in their life, sharing high vibration in their reawakening path.
Hello, good morning. Happy Friday to everybody here. Joa Rivas in the city of Toronto. So for those that are watching the YouTube, you guys can see I got a new background with the CN Tower. So CN Tower is a big icon in my city. So I am now in this cold city, but we are today with Neal. Neal is also in another winter city over there. We have Neal in New Jersey. How are you, Neal?
I'm doing very well today. Thank you. How are you?
I'm great. It's actually sunny. It's cold, but it's sunny. It's always the sun is also so good for our mood. So I'm happier receiving the sunshine and also welcoming everybody that is tuning for the first time in our channel. The channel is about spinal health, especially for those people that experience scoliosis, kyphosis, sciatica, any type of issue related to the spine, which is actually related to our whole body. Since we are an unit, this is something that we talk with Neal always about, how we cannot disconnect one part to the other. Our jaw is connected to our feet, so we're connected completely in one unit, and that's what we are always bringing our conversations into learning the why and the how. And this is why Neal really loves. For those that don't know Neal Hallinan, he is actually a postural restoration practitioner, and it's actually a very interesting story. He started in history, learning history, and then he moved into IT, which it made him actually aware of how many imbalances he had on his body. After 40 years on IT, sitting in the computer, I'm sure he probably felt more pain than ever. He moved his practice into dancing. So he started becoming back into his nature of dancing and moving with rhythm on beat, as we were talking on the last episode. And then as a dancer and also as a dancing teacher, he became very curious about the posture, and then he studied from the Postural Restoration Institute, where he learned so much about the why and the how, and that's why we here connected together. If you have following our conversations, we talked before about the jaw and our breathing. So that was 2 episodes before, and last episode we also talk about plantar fasciitis. So you can see we talk from the jaw to the feet, and they all connected. At the end, the conclusion is that we all are unit. So today we are going to be chatting about the middle part. We're going to be chatting about the hip, the glutes actually. We are mostly very aware that we are sitting for long hours. So we are normally on a fixated position that it creates a lot of tightness and a lot of imbalances in our body. So this, we all know about this. Most of the people are working remotely from home or somehow sitting for long hours. So today we are dedicating this talk about the hips. Okay, so Neal, I saw your last YouTube video where you educate thousands of people. You're almost over 20,000 subscribers. So 20,000 people are looking at Neal's information, which is very impactful. This is so good. And Neal, congrats that you're spreading the voice and educating all these people. So the last video, you were talking about the glute bridge and how inefficient it can be, this exercise. So I am a Pilates teacher and a yoga teacher, and actually a glute bridge, which is basically lifting your hips off the floor with your back supported and your heels anchor. This exercise is always used for actually a rehab, for a hip rehab, knee rehab. And I just want to know, like, what's the misconception about this exercise and why we're not properly doing this movement, Neal?
So the problem is that we are not, the vast majority of us, when you lie down on that floor, and so this is the top of the pelvis, and this is your back. When you're lying down on that floor, you're not lying down with a pelvis that is in this position. What you realize after doing postural restoration doesn't even take a long time, but you're going to realize when you do biomechanical testing of people, you're going to find that their pelvis is actually turned to the right because we are right dominant. when you're in this pattern, and actually the left side of the pelvis is forward and the right side of the pelvis is slightly back, which results in a pelvis that's turned to the right. This puts you on your right leg, and this is just part of our overall right dominance. It's really not a problem until we lose our left side, okay? So we got the dominant side and the non-dominant side. They have to work together. It's fine to have a dominant side, but some people become so dominant on their right side that everything they're doing, the right side is taking over. So they're trying to push up through their heels to do they're cued correctly. The therapist or the trainer knows how to do a glute bridge or a glute thrust, however you want to call it. But the problem is they don't realize that this person is actually lying like this. So when they try to push up to raise their hips up off the floor, what they're doing is they're overusing the right hamstring and potentially the left glute, but not in a good way. They're using these muscles in a way that just solidifies their rightward rotation.
Okay.
And that's the problem. But if you don't realize that, if you think everyone lying down is like this, but in reality they're lying down like this, that's the main problem. If people were lying down like this, which is what we're trying to get people to be able to do through postural restoration, is to restore alternating movement from side to side, so they can now lie down in a straight position, then the glute bridge is a great exercise. It's fine. I wouldn't say it's great, but it's fine at that point. But when people are lying down, positioned, oriented to the right, they're not doing a glute bridge with equal amounts of force production on both sides. So they're kind of just strengthening their own pattern that they're stuck in. They're reinforcing that position by by strengthening the muscles that are keeping them in that position. So that's the issue.
Right. So this is in terms of the hip, and we're talking about glute activation. Remember, your glutes are one of the most powerful muscles. It's actually the biggest muscle of the body. It connects the upper and the lower limbs. And actually, a lot of people are looking for a very sexy booty, but it goes beyond the look. It goes about the functionality of having strong buttocks, right? The muscles of the glutes max, the glute medius, and the glute minimums are also attached to the tensor fasciae latae, which are the side ones. And we mostly tied on these IT bands, commonly known. So how can we actually external rotate our hips, activate our glutes properly, and evenly both sides, knowing that we are already having this tendency to be dominant on the right side? So my question is, and many of us listening to this conversation, how can we do it? What can we do instead of the glute bridge? Or can we do one leg at a time? Should we actually come back into what could we do physically? Then we want to be talking about the breathing. Okay, so let's just now focus on the physical part. How can we do to actually activate our glutes properly?
Okay, so this goes back to the pronation and supination issue with the feet and the plantar fasciitis. So when you're lying down in what we call this left AIC pattern, which is simply a pelvis that's tilted, yeah. You know, or I know, that the right people will sense the right heel more than the left heel, and they'll sense the left arch more than the right arch. That results in a pelvis that's turned to the right. That's what you should feel underneath your feet, a right heel and a left arch, if your body weight is actually shifted to the right. That's normal. So what you could do is just shift it. When you lie down to do a glute bridge, you want to push up through your left heel and the arch of your right foot. And just by doing that, will turn your pelvis back to the center.
Okay. And so that means to be actively aware of this on each rep?
All awareness. Absolutely, it's awareness. People are like, well, what do you mean by sensing your left heel and your right arch? Bringing awareness. That's why people who meditate, people who do somatic type of things where they're getting in touch with their body, they do so much better with postural restoration because they're already accustomed to trying to sense their body positions. So yeah, so when you lie in the normal position, but you bring awareness to your left heel and the arch of your right foot, which then your brain processes and says, oh, when I feel ground underneath my left heel and ground underneath the right arch, that corresponds to turning to the left side. That's what happens when we're walking.
Okay.
So your pelvis turns to the left at the step in the gait cycle when the right arch is coming down and the left heel is making contact. That turns you, that pronation of the right foot and supination of the left foot turns you to the left. So you can just incorporate that left heel and right arch, we call them references, awareness, into a lot of different exercises, which will inhibit, this is the important thing, that will inhibit the hip flexors on the left side that's keeping you turned to the right. Because
Okay.
a heel will give you a hamstring, and a hamstring turns off a hip flexor. So it's a neurological phenomenon. It's a brain issue. It's not the muscles. It's what your brain is perceiving too much of. We have to give it the opposite.
Okay, so the very first step, as I don't understand, we need to become aware of the left heel,
Yes.
and before we actually go into a glute bridge.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Then it comes the second question related to the glute activation and the connection to the pelvis and the rib cage position.
Yeah.
And those positions that are actually depending on our diaphragmatic breathing.
Correct.
Many of us, or them, I don't want to include myself, but many people are breathing from the chest, and they are actually working on a half of the capacity that we have as humans. So how can we actually activate our pelvis by being aware of our breathing and our rib cage activation?
Okay. So again, I'll try to make it as simple as possible, even though it's not necessarily simple. A lot of people have trained themselves to breathe only into their belly. And so you watch them breathe, their belly will rise, but there's no motion anywhere else in their body. Now, theoretically, that could be all right. However, what you find with these types of people is that their rib cage is stiff, very, very stiff, especially up here and through their lower back.
We're talking about the chest and the lower back.
Yes. The problem is the lungs are up here. And if the rib cage is tight up here because it never expands, it never rises with inhalation, the rib cage just completely stays tight and your spine will stay overarched. So a lot of people are doing all their exercises with a body that's rigid through the rib cage. And if they're rigid and the rib cage can't expand in all directions, they can't use their diaphragms to breathe, because the only way a diaphragm can pump on both sides, because they're two different muscles, is if a rib cage can expand at the same time. The diaphragm goes down with inhalation, and that downward movement expands the rib cage. But if they're too tight, the diaphragms can't descend. So you have to work on diaphragmatic breathing, but diaphragmatic breathing does not mean just the belly moving. If the rib cage is too restricted, the diaphragm cannot descend. So you have to be in a position that will allow you, or you have to be aware of the fact that you should be able to feel. If you put your right hand on your right upper chest and your left hand on your left lower ribs, you should feel, because these are the two areas that we're primarily concerned with in postural restoration. If you're lying on your back, say you're in a glute bridge position, okay, your knees are bent, your feet are flat on the floor. You should be able to feel your lower back flat on that floor. If you feel like your lower back is arched when you're in that position, you are not diaphragmatically breathing, and you will not feel your glutes appropriately. You will not get the proper glute or hamstring activity. But if you're in that position and you can feel your lower back flat, when you inhale, you should feel both your right chest and your left ribs rise and fall with inhalation and exhalation. A lot of people are not getting air into their right upper chest, which means their right lung is never inflating completely, because they're over on that right side. Everything's compressed. Mm-hmm. So if you can breathe and sense your heels on the floor, your lower back flat, staying flat during inhalation. If you lose contact with the ground with your lower back during inhalation, that means you're neck breathing. Your neck and your lower back are extending your body to breathe. That's not diaphragmatic breathing. So your body has to stay flat on the floor as you inhale, and you should feel your ribs down here and your ribs up here both rise and fall like the tide with inhalation and exhalation.
Okay.
That alone will then put your pelvis into a neutral position.
Okay. I think we got actually step by step how to improve the glute activation. We are not telling you that glute activation like Glute Bridge is actually bad for you. It's only like how can we actually retrain our brain and our body to connect properly. So I really love the conversation today, and I'm going to paraphrase and recap all these little snippets that we just talked, and important for you to practice. And we invite you to practice after this talk as you are exercising any type of exercises. I believe glute bridge is one of the best ways to warm up our entire body. So as I understand, Neal explained to us that everything starts by connecting to our breath. So I think the very first thing will be to connect our spine to the floor and avoid arching on the floor. Then from this position, when you're actually flat on the floor, your eyes are looking up and you're bending your knees when your heels are anchored. Then in this position, we can start sensing our breathing by connecting the left hand in the low rib cage and the right hand on the upper rib cage. So we can actually feel the air coming into our body, raising and expanding our rib cage, and then exhaling and feeling how the in comes down, right? So basically, first connect to your breath. This may take you 1 minute. This may take you 10 deep breaths. So just take your time to first connect to your breath, which is definitely going to start bringing that brain-body connection from the very first minute. From there, then let's make sure that your pelvic floor is activated in equal way, not only the right side, but also the left side, by becoming aware of the heel of the left heel, basically, because the left heel will be very anchored. We're gonna feel the arch of the right heel, the right foot. Then we can activate the buttocks. Are we good here? Yes.
That is it. And remember that the muscles are not the problem. We have lost a sensory experience of the left side of our body. So you're just reorganizing your awareness, your sensory awareness, to tell your brain, we don't want to lie down with our body turned to the right. We want to lie down with our brain, with our body centered. And that's what that's going to do. It's going to counteract the right-sided dominance that we end up in through the course of the day. All you got to do is look at someone's shoulders. 8 or 9 times out of 10, you're going to see a left shoulder higher than the right shoulder. That is a human that's over on their right side. Once you start to see it, you cannot unsee it. It's there. We just have to balance it out.
Okay, great. Well, we got great tips, Neal. I think we got a step-by-step how to do proper bridges, and we're actually looking forward for your comments. If you actually get to practice this, maybe for you, you may need only a practice of the diaphragmatic breathing, and maybe another day you can start practicing your glute bridges. But I think the most important is the why and the how, and I think we learned it today with Neal. Thank you so much, Neal. And for those that want to know more about where to find Neal, Neal Hallinan has a YouTube channel where he actually spread the voice of postural restoration to everybody, and it has great traction so far. I really love what he's doing. We really need this type of education more and more. Beyond our aesthetics, we're learning the why and the how, which is going to be preserving our longevity and a good quality of life. And we also can find Neal on his website, right?
And I don't do a lot on my website anymore. It's just too much. But my Instagram, I'm almost kind of active on Instagram, but not every day.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much, Neal. I can wait to have another talk in the future. Thank you so much for your time. And remember that together.
We invite you to subscribe to this channel and share with your community. Please leave comments below, and if you like the episode, click the like button. Have a beautiful day.